Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I want to take a closer look at Unity. The stock dropped over 5% today after the company yesterday announced some changes to their pricing fee. On today's episode, I want to take a closer look at what they kind of changed, my overall thoughts, and is this game over for this kind of game engine stock? Let's take a closer look in today's episode. All right, so first, let's take a closer look at what happened. So we can see from this Unity Twitter X post, they announced changes to their business model, which includes new addition to their subscription plans and the introduction of a runtime fee. I do believe a lot of the pain right now is happening because of that runtime fee. But I want to start off with the subscription plan changes. So in the top is the most recent. So they have the personal, which is free unless you meet certain threshold, which I believe is over 100 or $200,000 of revenue. I believe it's $200,000 of revenue. So that's pretty good. Most, I want to say, Unity developers probably fall here, where you're kind of trying to create a game, trying to use their platform. Next is the pro version, which is roughly $2,000 a year. This is a complete solution for professionals. I personally believe if you are a professional, you're definitely able to play $2,000 a year. Then the enterprise and industry are out there for obviously your bigger players. The big change is there used to be a version between the personal and the pro. That used to be the plus, which was roughly $400 a year. I want to say this is probably a little bit more of your hobbyist or your hobbyists that have a little bit money to spend. We usually go with the plus. I would say Unity kind of eliminating the plus. They most likely have some backend data that, hey, even though there's probably users that choose this, it's more of maybe like a money losing stream for us. So it's okay for us to eliminate it. But I do believe a good portion of the pain, like I mentioned, is on that runtime fee. So they do mention that this is a price increase and it will only affect a small subset of current Unity users. Today, they mentioned a large majority of Unity editors users are currently not paying anything and will not be affected by this change. And I do believe probably most of the people that are making noise right now are the people that fall, unfortunately, into this kind of spectrum where they're kind of making games, but unfortunately, because the game industry is so cutthroat, that these fees that they are implementing aren't even going to affect them one bit. They do mention that the developers who will be in fact impacted are generally those who have successful games and are generating revenue way above the thresholds we outlined in our blog. They do mention that the kind of pricing in change will happen on January 1st of 2024, and they will charge once for a new install, and this is not an ongoing perpetual license royalty like revenue share. So the main kind of fee that's happening here is if you do install a game after a certain threshold, you will be charged for that, and it's going to be a very very small charge. We're going to take a closer look at those numbers, but I kind of want to take a closer look at what we know right now. So there are reports that roughly only 10% of Unity developers are affected by this price structure change. If you go out there on Twitter right now and see all this hate, you would expect that 100% of the developers are being affected by this price structure. But right now, it's only 10% of Unity developers. The other thing is Unity does not have a royalty fee like Unreal Engine. So this is probably the closest thing that they would get to a royalty fee right now. So just want to kind of mention how the competition is to the moment. The other things that I want to mention is the installation fee needs to meet various thresholds, and I want to talk about those thresholds right now. Those thresholds depend on the version of Unity that you own. Obviously, the free version gets the threshold and the cost a little bit different compared to maybe if you're paying already for their software solutions, you might kind of get a easing on pricing, and that makes sense, right? If you have a free version, obviously, if your game is successful, you might get hit with more pricing. I mean, that to me makes sense. And obviously, if you're already paying for their subscription service and paying a nice amount of money, your fee is going to be a lot less. This is kind of what we see with a lot of software companies. So this is not that crazy. These thresholds that need to be met are per kind of first revenue. That kind of developer needs to have at least $200,000 in the last 12 months of their money of revenue coming in. And then install threshold. The install threshold is per game. The game needs to have over 200,000 installs before the fee goes into effect. So, right, the game needs to be successful. I do believe that maybe some small game developers who, unfortunately, like I mentioned, the game market is very cutthroat. Some, I want to say most games probably don't even get 10,000 downloads. So you won't be affected by this at all. And we can see after those thresholds are met is when the fees start up, right? So it depends on how many installs over that threshold, and you will pay, if you have the free version, 20 cents per install after that threshold, right? So if you have 200,000 installs, that 200,001, you're going to start paying 20 cents per install. So I don't think it's crazy, right? I don't know if it's just me. Maybe you guys can think about it. And obviously, maybe you can see from the other subscription solutions, if you have a Unity Enterprise, and your first few installs after the threshold are roughly 12 cents. But if you have way more installs after that, that pricing kind of goes down and down and down. Again, nothing too crazy. And I'm pretty sure the big time game developers obviously are going to get hurt by this or going to take quite a hit. But it is kind of a way for Unity to continue to improve its solutions. So they do mention one more thing, and I think this is pretty interesting. Unity, they look for ways to lessen the impact on developers, and they provide ways to bring this runtime fee to zero. If you're using any of their ad products, Unity Gaming Services, or Cloud Service, please contact to them to discuss discounts. And I want to say this is the thing about Unity, right? They're kind of creating an incentive for you to use their other game solutions. And Unity is not just a game engine, right? They have this whole ecosystem for creating games, pre-creation, post-creation, like user acquisition, ads, publishing, analytics, crash reporting, the community, content management, multiplayer, clouding solutions, right? So Unity is saying, hey, look, you have to pay this fee after you meet these extensive thresholds and you are a successful game developer. But you who already have a successful game, want to come and use our clouding solutions, want to come and use our advertisement solutions, we will give you a discount on that fee. So again, I do believe probably most of the big players out there already that are kind of making money out of Unity games and kind of meet these thresholds, now they might be using monetization in another platform, but instead they might go, hey, you know what? Instead of paying those fees, let me come back to Unity. Let me monetize with Unity instead. Let me do my user acquisition with Unity instead, and I won't have to pay that fee, and I still get all those kind of perks that I was getting off the bat. So I do believe this is probably Unity's big game plan, is to just create an incentive for game developers to use the rest of their ecosystem. I personally think it's a smart move. So in a bit, I want to take a closer look at some of the negative things. But before we get there, guys, I just want to say thank you for the support. We just hit 27.9 subs. I'm trying to hit 30,000 by the end of the year. Normally, I do cover semiconductor stocks, but I do cover a lot of tech stocks in general. But if you are curious about the semiconductor market, I do have a master's degree in electrical engineering. I've worked at some pretty cool companies, so I have a weekly exclusive video on the membership program. Click join to learn more. If you want a special offer, check out fool.com/Jose. Free newsletter, josenaharo.substack.com. Semiconductor news at semiconductorwatch.com.
Finally, I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about the bad, and what I can kind of see as maybe some investors are kind of discussing. First, I want to say is the negative press. But to me, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that whole Facebook ad thing that happened a few years ago, how everybody was going to leave Facebook. No one was going to advertise in Facebook. And then a few months later, Facebook was like, hey, look, yeah, we're kind of seeing strength in our advertisement business. So I do believe this is going to happen, right? A lot of negative press happening. People are going to say they're going to leave Unity platform. They might do so for a quarter, but then they'll realize that Unity has this full toolbox that they're going to come back to it if they do leave. and probably those big players aren't really the big developers who already successful kind of are going to understand that, hey, maybe this might not be a big move. I personally believe most people making the noise right now on things like Twitter and X, unfortunately, are developers who won't even hit that threshold. Game development is a crazy, crazy competitive market. And not to throw any shade at them and saying that they're not making successful games, it's just that this is such a crazy, crazy market. And I'm just saying most of the people making the noise. We also have seen successful developers who are making noise and making successful games. And right now, I do believe, unfortunately, Unity kind of blindsided with them with this kind of fee, and too many questions are arising, and it's kind of forcing developers to really kind of make some noise at the moment. I would personally believe that maybe the top 1% of developers probably knew something about this. If you go to Blizzard or Activision, I'm pretty sure the CEOs kind of discussed that something like this was going to happen. And I'm pretty sure developers will now just seek to use Unity's other tools to get the discount and won't even feel much of that pain in January. Like I mentioned, companies like Activision, companies Second Dinner that made Snap, they're going to continue to use all of Unity's other game services like their clouding solution, their multiplayer, and I don't believe they're going to really feel any much of the fee right here. Users can go to competitors, right? Unreal Engine, but the the competitor has a revenue share, unlike Unity, which doesn't have a revenue share. Users can also go to other open source game engines, and I've seen a lot of kind of tweets about this where, hey, look, I'm going to switch to an open source, but I do want to say most open source engines don't have the full package like Unity. They might just have the game engine, and they might have a great game engine, but they don't have the advertisement, they don't have the data analytics, they don't have the clouding solutions, they don't have the multiplayer solutions, they don't have the kind of community solutions, the monetization tools. So, right, I want to say, even though there are other open source solutions, no one has the toolbox like Unity right now. While I'm saying this, right, it might seem like I'm saying there's nothing bad that Unity is doing, but I do believe that Unity has a lot of fault here. And I believe the biggest problem here is, one, the way management handled this. It was kind of thrown out of nowhere, which has really created a lot of the negative press. I honestly don't know how one can go about it, but I'm pretty sure there's way better ways to go about it. The second thing is the new pricing out of nowhere, especially impacting old games, might have developers to think, hey, if Unity was able to kind of throw this new pricing right now, what is gonna kind of stop them from doing a new pricing a few years from now? So it's kind of creating this distrust. I do believe that distrust might be something a lot more painful in the future, especially if Unity continues to push away their developers to some extent. The final thing in the badness I want to say is legal stuff, right? There might be some companies that go out and say, hey, look, legally you can't charge us for something that we have released a few years ago. So there are going to be some legal gray battles, in my opinion, that could come out of this. Now I just kind of want to share my final thoughts. While I was looking on Twitter, I saw this pretty cool tweet, and I don't want to put the person out there just in case they don't want to be shown, but they mentioned that this is how they felt. Someone was kind of complaining about Unity, how they were going to leave the service and whatsoever, but they mentioned, this is how I felt about Adobe when they moved to a SaaS model, yet I still use them. I'm pretty sure, like I mentioned, right, this is that whole Facebook drama all over again. Everybody's going to talk about leaving them, but as long as Unity continues to provide great tools, that ultimate toolbox, then I think developers are just going to eat the cost. And we did see from Game World observers, they kind of shared some pretty cool information that right now, this runtime fee and other changes, Unity will add new features to all its plans. One of those is Unity Senses, which is this huge AI solution market, and I do believe this is the biggest reason Unity is doing, is they are trying to offset some of that Unity cost on the AI market right now. And as long as Unity continues to provide these great tools, I don't know many other game engines that are providing probably the AI technologies that Unity is providing. So of course they have this ultimate toolbox that I keep messaging or discussing. Mentioning is the word. I believe Unity will continue to kind of lead in this market. There are some other thoughts I want to mention. I do know that some people hate the CEO, and that's completely understandable. I know the CEO says a few things. He kind of has that background with EA and the loot box, so I understand. And for me, is don't invest if you can't stand management. Overall, I think that this change is fine and beneficial for Unity, and no real changes will happen to the landscape. Again, it just kind of reminds me of that meta drama all over again. As long as Unity continues to put new tools into its service and continues to say, hey, look, you guys are paying a fee, but look at all these great tools that you have. I have Unity. It is in my portfolio. I personally would buy sub 30s for sure, but at current price, maybe this is a small dollar cost average. I do want to say a big bulk of my buys of Unity were in the 20 range, in the low 20 range when the company really saw a price decline. I want to say in October of last year. Yep, right here in November of 2022. This is when a big bulk of my purchasing happened in the low 20s, right? So obviously, I'm excited right now. I believe this is a lot of noise, but obviously, there is some negative, and maybe people wish management handled it a different way. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.